What is up? Hope you're doing well and welcome to Module 4. In this module, we're going to discuss how to build habits that you can sustain over a long period of time to truly achieve the success that feels meaningful to you. As humans, we're creatures of habit and repetition. In fact, that's one of the best ways that we learn and retain new information. And the process by which our brain maps these new connections is called neuroplasticity, in which our brain cells or neurons literally like form bridges with each other when we are partaking in some sort of new information, new learning, or a new experience. You might have heard of the famous saying, neurons that fire together wire together. And what this basically is implying and means is that when you partake in a particular action, the next time you do this thing, it's going to be much easier for you because of the fact that your brain has already started to create that connection between that set of neurons. And this then applies to good habits, but then this also applies to bad habits as well. So, for instance, an example of a good habit can be you going to the gym. If that's something that you've been partaking in for a few weeks, for a few months, for a few years, then naturally it's just going to be significantly easier for you to continue to partake in that habit because you already have that system and those neuron pathways in place that it makes it easier for you to do so. And then the same goes for any bad habit. If anything like sleeping late or sleeping inconsistently or eating a lot of junk food, if this becomes a part of your regular routine, then those are the neurons that are mapped in your brain. So naturally, when there's a certain cue or a certain trigger in your environment, that's the neural pathway that's gonna fire and then push you to take that action. And building sustainable habits is so crucial for personal growth, and that's exactly why I wanted to mention some of the science now. And we're gonna go a little bit deeper into the science behind habits, and following that, I will basically get all this knowledge to give you practical tips and advice so that excuse me, so that you can implement the same kind of systems that I've employed over the past 10 years that have helped me build the habits of studying, going to the gym, being able to have side projects while working a 9 to 5, and just the overall existence of my being and being able to handle so many different things and continuing to make progress in each different field. So let's start by talking about the science behind habits, which ties back into the saying of neurons that fire together wire together. Even after years and years and years of evolution, the truth is that our brains are still very primitive. We have consciousness as humans to make decisions based on critical thinking, but even then, a lot of what we do is truly governed by automatic behaviors and actions. For instance, when you wake up in the morning, like usually you have a routine that you brush your teeth, you use mouthwash, or you're using the bathroom. Or for instance, if you have to drive somewhere or if you have to get somewhere, you're going to use some mode of transportation, or you're going to walk, run there, things like that. And the science behind this is there's a cue or a trigger in the environment that allows you to recognize, okay, or allows your brain to be like, okay, this is what's going on in the environment. And then comes the next step of routine. The neural pathways in your brain start to fire, and then that results you in taking some sort of action, or it induces some sort of an emotion or feeling, and following that action is where the reward comes in. So our brain follows this pattern of cue, routine, reward. And the thing is, like I said, the brain is still primitive, that it doesn't see the difference as well between good habits and bad habits. It just knows habits. It just knows this system of cue, routine, reward, and it's going to employ this regardless of whether you're engaging in something that benefits you or you engage in something that's not beneficial for your mind and body. Because at its core, this is what our brain uses to form automatic behaviors. So I gave those examples of waking up to brush your teeth right away in the morning, or if you have to get somewhere, you drive. And the same applies to many other examples, right? Like if, for instance, a cue or a trigger can be your body signaling to you that it's hungry, so your routine is to cook something or order something or somehow obtain some sort of fuel or food, and then the reward ends up being that your body has more energy, right? That's usually how it goes with consumption and cooking, or just that example overall. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is that this also goes for the bad behaviors, right? So, for instance, one of the most common things that we do is doom scrolling, or trying to just distract ourselves from our current reality and escape through scrolling on social media. And the cue or the trigger in that instance can be a lot of different things depending on how you've programmed yourself to scroll on social media. So, for instance, if sometimes I have certain stressors and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to think about this, then naturally, like my hand, like I don't even consciously think, dude, like my hand would go in my pocket, pull out my phone, Instagram in one tap, and boom, and I'm scrolling on Reels. In this case, the cue or the trigger is an emotional response from the body that you're stressed or you want to distract yourself. Then the routine is to go on social media and to scroll, which is literally so easy for us to do that that's why it's also easy to get addicted to it. Not just because of the algorithm, but also because it's so simple and so easy to get those dopamine hits. And then, of course, that's the reward. The reward is those quick dopamine hits that you get by watching reels that are like really funny or really insightful, whatever it is that you're watching on social media, right? And just a quick note that social media companies, bro, they know this stuff. They've hacked this stuff. Like they everything they do in the algorithm is boiled down to science. It's boiled down to the simplest of things, and they've perfected every little thing that you can think of, bro. Like the button sizes, the colors, the fonts, the font size. They're constantly experimenting with this and making sure that they keep you on the app as long as they can. And one of the other things that they do is when you're scrolling on some sort of reels or posts or any sort of like explore feed, they show you stuff in different categories, as in stuff that you're gonna love, stuff that you're gonna like okay, and then stuff that you're not gonna like they use a combination of all of these things and probably more subcategories to make sure that you don't always get the most dopamine hit that you can get. Their goal is to keep you as on the app as long as possible, which means they have to include the strategy of giving you really nice dopamine hits through the really good content that you enjoy, and then also give you like medium and low dopamine hits and keep you scrolling. It's just crazy to me, dude. And this is an example of instant gratification because you're using that keyword trigger of an emotional stressor, you're using that routine of scrolling and distracting yourself, and then the reward is like quick dopamine hits just hitting your brain every few seconds from like a new video. And the reason that this instant gratification is because this cue routine reward is a cycle that's happening really, really fast. Now, the goal to build habits that are sustainable and are going to give you long term results for things that are meaningful to you, I promise you, most of these things are going to be something that employs the idea of delayed gratification, in which the time between the routine and the reward is significantly greater. Like it's just sometimes the routine and the reward can have a gap of years. So this is something that employs that idea of delayed gratification, but then since that space between the routine and the reward is larger, that means the reward itself is also longer lived in your body, in your mind, and just in your experiences, overall memory as well, and the way that your body processes that kind of information. And this is also the thing that truly translates your actions into material reality. Most of the times, delayed gratification is going to be the way to go. So the more you can delay gratification, the more you'll be working towards a life that is genuinely going to bring you longer term, fulfilling rewards that transcend beyond those quick dopamine hits that you get from just like scrolling on Instagram or eating a donut or eating something like sweet or sugary. And the key here is something that's a central theme to pretty much all the modules, as you might have noticed in the previous one as well, and that is small changes. Small changes are key and crucial in leading to significant results over the course of time. For instance, one of my most recent wins or one of my most recent projects is learning AI and machine learning. It's something that really fascinated me last year, and I've only recently started taking courses on that online. And at first I was like, oh, I'm so daunted by this. Like, I don't even know where to begin. I'm not a computer science major. I'm starting from scratch. Like, I have no idea how I'm going to learn all these things. But instead of focusing on that, I just kind of switched my mindset and looked at it as a way of, okay, if this is my final goal and I don't have, and I have time to accomplish this, let's say I have 3 months or 4 months, then how can I break this down into daily actionable steps, right? And those small changes incorporated watching a specific set amount of videos a day. So for instance, the first few weeks I'd watch like an hour a day of videos and all the practice exercises that are included in the courses. But over the past 3 months, I've finished 2 courses, almost finishing my third one. And from the time that I started to where I am now, the gap in my knowledge is so immense. But this wouldn't be the case if I was just paralyzed into not taking action because the goal just seems so big. Even now, there's so much that I have to learn. Those small steps, like even watching like a few minutes worth of videos a day, it builds up over time and over a few months, over a couple of years. Like, this progress really tremendously adds up. I cannot stress the importance of that enough. Like, genuinely, regardless of whatever it is that you want to do, understand that as long as you keep working towards it, even if it's like 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, bro, in few months, couple years, few years, it's gonna make such a massive difference and you're gonna see it. So summarizing, so not summarizing, but let's go a little bit more into details about practical tips that you can use to create and sustain habits. The key theme: start small. Instead of trying to incorporate all habits at once, pick one habit at a time and then incorporate that over the next few weeks, next couple of months. I think a good rule of thumb is to start a new habit, incorporate it for like a full month and assess how you feel. Because if it's something of a simple habit that only adds maybe like 10-15 minutes a day, I think that's something that you can really realistically fit into your schedule over the course of a month and get used to it and then start off with another habit. But if it's something like learning a new course, learning a new skill, starting to go to the gym, or you're trying to build a side project, anything like that that's going to require more of an additional time effort on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, then a good rule of thumb is to shoot for incorporation over 2 to 3 months. Like, you're really giving yourself time to get settled into the new habit, but also understand how exactly does it fit into your lifestyle, because 1 month sometimes is not enough for those longer term habits, and you have to troubleshoot, trial and error, troubleshoot, adapt, and see, okay, if this doesn't fit here, maybe I can try this next week, and having that reiterative process. Secondly, you gotta make sure that you're aligning your habit with personal values and intentions. Make sure this habit, resonates with your core values, and this means having a purpose attached to the habit, having a why as to what is it that makes it so personally important to you to follow through on this habit. And the thing is that you have to dig deep here. Every time you come up with the answer of why this habit is important to you, ask yourself the question of why again to that answer. So for instance, One of my earlier things that I started with at a younger age was going to the gym. And I would ask myself the question, like, why do I want to go to the gym? And my first answer would be so people would stop making fun of me for being skinny. But then I have to ask myself the question of, okay, but why do I not want people to call me skinny? Or why am I seeking external validation from others? And you have to go through this loop of asking yourself these why questions so you can finally boil down to that main important underlying why, because this is going to serve as a reminder of how essential it is to keep going on the days when you don't feel like it. Ultimately, one of my whys for gym came down to be that I saw my grandparents in like really bad health or in their last few years before leading up to them passing away, and it was something that did deeply affect me because I saw how their quality of life changed, but also how the quality of life differed for my mom, because my mom had to take care of them. And it really instilled the importance of health in general. And I realized that gym was just another outlet for self-expression, and then also just to be healthier overall as an as just as the physical body. Like, it wasn't just about gaining validation from other people. Now, of course, this is a process that took a while for me to really boil down and understand this why. So don't be hard on yourself if you're not able to identify those underlying whys right away. Just make sure that it's strong enough to keep you pushing. And as you continue on that journey for a few months, few years, those whys are going to get stronger and stronger. Promise you that. One of the more important things here is also consistency. Make sure that you're committing to a daily practice or some sort of a routine weekly practice. And going back to that cue routine reward cycle, make sure that you're utilizing your triggers or cues in your environment to reinforce the habit. Now, what does that mean? It means that when you notice and catch yourself in the cue of feeling like, oh, I should do this or I should do that, take a second there, take a breath there, moment to realize, okay, this is the cue, this is the trigger, but I can still choose to fire a different neural pathway if that's what I intend. And this is where the power of meditation comes in. Like, when you're someone who meditates, you're able to catch these thoughts and patterns in your mind much better than if you weren't consistently sitting with your thoughts and observing your thoughts and patterns. And that's exactly why the modules are structured this way too, because the previous one gave you the skills necessary for this one as well. And you'll see how all of it also ties together by the end of this course. And I'm just so excited for that. But using your triggers and cues and identifying them can help you realize some patterns or pathways that you've been firing, or patterns that you've been following that perhaps you didn't even realize. And that's the first step to breaking them. And then you can use a replacement to combat an unhealthy behavior. So, for instance, if your cue or trigger is an emotional response or stress that you need to or you want to doom scroll, perhaps you can replace that with like a set of push ups, or maybe you can replace that with like a glass of water. And that's how you start really rewiring your brain so that you're not on autopilot and just continuing to go about the cue routine reward cycle with the goal of instant gratification, but rather delayed gratification. When consistency comes into play, you should also consider rewarding yourself for being consistent. So make sure you set up small milestones or small rewards or celebrations for yourself, because positive reinforcements and self-love is going to be key. Like, this is something that I ignored in my early days, bro, and I would be so hard on myself, but now I genuinely understand the value of being compassionate and kind with yourself, because you really are trying your best with everything that you know. But now that you know and have and understand more information that is beneficial for you, it's time for you to put it into practice. And that should include you rewarding yourself when you follow through on your commitments. So if you set a goal of meditating for the full week and you accomplish it, you got to treat yourself to something nice and celebrate. And even if it means just like a nice affirmation, like, wow, like I'm so proud of myself for following through. Like this tells me that I'm becoming the version of myself that I'm supposed to become. And then this practice naturally starts to translate in other areas of your life as well, which also brings a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, and a genuine sense of fulfillment inside of you. Because you're not just connected to the reward or the routine, but you're connected to the version of yourself that's willing to make the hard choices, that's willing to take the steps to improve yourself and step into a higher version of you. In this process, it is also important for you to normalize and recognize that setbacks and slip ups are part of the process. They're bound to happen. So make peace with it. And instead of seeing them as bad or negative, consider them as opportunities to learn more about yourself. You know, if something didn't work, review what led to it, review what made you fall back into the pattern, then adjust and then get back in your routine. When you're rooted in consistency, the progress is not going to fade away when you have one slip up or a few slip ups, even. And that's exactly why consistent practice is so important. Like if you meditate for 28 days and you miss 2 days, that's not going to break away your progress from 28 days. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think you understand what I'm putting out. And like I said, it's just extremely important to recognize that we are humans. We are going to make mistakes. We are going to slip up. And that's part of the process, because those experiences help us realize some of our shortcomings and what we can continue to do better. Self realization and evolution is a lifelong process. And the thing, or one of the goals here with this course, is to really get deeper into realizing who you are, what your core values are, and aligning and deriving your actions from a place of love and respect for yourself. And in this process, you also have to be kind with yourself and show compassion, especially on the days when you do slip up. Troubleshoot and then get back in it. To quickly summarize all the stuff that we have discussed, but mostly the practical advice for how to actually build and sustain the habits. Start small, start with one habit, incorporate it slowly, and then build on that habit over time, whether that be you increasing the duration or increasing the intensity, or perhaps adding on a new skill to that habit. You gotta maintain purpose, consistency, rewards, and learning from setbacks. These are all just a mere part of this process, and nothing inherently here is good or bad. Everything just is. We choose to assign meaning to things, and I want you to think about failures, rejections, setbacks, and things that are not working out as learning opportunities and experiences to extract lessons so you can keep learning more about yourself and how you can continue to improve. And lastly, make sure all of these habits, all the things that you're doing, are aligned with your personal values. And if you don't know what your personal values are just yet or are still exploring, then that's fine too, because that's exactly how I was and when I started my journey. And one of the key tricks here is you just start with something that feels aligned in that moment or in that time period. And if it doesn't feel aligned to you later on, then that's perfectly fine. You just learned a new skill, you have it under your belt, and now you can move on to another habit or another thing. That's the best part about life, is that you can continue to pivot and change and keep becoming better, even if that means that you have to let go of some things from the past. With all of that said, the action step for this module is to choose one specific habit that you want to build or change. Apply one of the techniques that we've discussed in this module, and then track your progress for a week Or if you want to take it a step further, maybe for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, depending on what your habit is. And I want you to keep reflecting on and writing about challenges, successes, feelings, and emotions that arise from implementing that habit. Even if it's something that makes you feel hard, makes you feel stressful, like note these things down because you want to be able to revisit your thoughts. If you want to be, I'm realizing that I've been mentioning the action steps as things to be just writing, but perhaps if that's not a medium that you want to follow, then you can also record voice notes, record yourself on a video like this, or record yourself doing the habit, whatever it is. As long as you're documenting in some format that you can revisit, I think that's really the key part here. And at the end of the week or at the end of a couple of weeks, reflect and revisit on these documentation that you have and then extract learnings from it. Like, how did you feel overall from the experience? What did you learn? Do you still feel like this habit is aligned with your values, whether you want to continue with it, and how the habit has helped you improve, and whether it's something that has been benefiting your routine rather than taking away from it. As always, if you're partaking in this action step, which I really hope you do, because I think the best way to learn is by doing and is by experience, then make sure you follow me on Instagram at spiritualish underscore and tag me on Instagram when you follow through on these action steps, because one of the other best ways to continue to improve is to have accountability, and sometimes having a community of like-minded folks can be extremely beneficial. So make sure you tap in. And with that said, we'll wrap up this module. Next module, we'll discuss emotional intelligence, resilience, and mindset hacks that I've employed over the past 10 plus years to get to where I am now. I will catch you all in the next one.